Hello everybody, it's your pal Jonah back at it again with another video. So in my opinion, one of the most interesting things come out of this whole quarantine situation is that now with all the schools closed, a lot more families are considering homeschooling their kids. Now, for those of you who don't know, I was homeschooled my entire life, all the way from kindergarten up until I graduated high school and went off to college. So I guess you could say I'm kind of an expert on homeschooling. Now, because of my expert status and the new fascination with homeschooling, I thought I would look at a bunch of articles and quizzes that have to do with homeschooling and give my opinion on whether or not they're accurate or completely ridiculous. So I've got a few here on my computer right now. Most of them are from BuzzFeed because, of course, BuzzFeed is like the gift that keeps on giving as far as content goes. And then I have another one that's just from some random site that I found after Googling articles on homeschooling. So yeah, that's the video. It's just me reacting to homeschooling stuff because I thought it'd be funny and I also thought it was topical. And I think it's a nice segue from my documentary series, which if you haven't seen, check it out, link in the description, into my more regular type of content, which is very different, to say the least. Now, before we get into it, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button right below this video and make sure you hit that little notification bell next to it. That way you're notified every time I upload a new video. And you can actually customize it to be notified for all my uploads or just some of them. Either way, I would love it if you guys subscribe. So with all that out of the way, let's get into the video. Let's just dive into it. Full send, no false starts here. We're up on the starting blocks. We're just gonna dive into it and breaststroke our way through it. This is a weird metaphor. Why did I do this? Anyway, so the first article we're gonna look at is from topeducationdegrees.org. Never heard of them, no idea who they are, but it's 30 common misconceptions about homeschoolers and homeschooling. So let's see if they're actually misconceptions or not. So the first one. Homeschoolers are social outcasts. So yes and no. I think there's a very big and important distinction between people who are homeschooled and homeschoolers. I consider myself someone who was homeschooled, not a homeschooler. Jonah, what constitutes this distinction, I hear you asking? Well, I'll tell you. First of all, I was allowed to watch PG-13 movies growing up. I think I was 7 or 8 when I first watched Lord of the Rings, so I was allowed to watch PG-13 movies. I was allowed to watch R-rated movies once I was old enough. I think I saw my first R-rated movie when I was 12, I want to say. I was allowed to play video games, which a lot of my friends growing up weren't allowed to do. I was allowed to play video games, and the big thing that I think is the largest separation is I was allowed to watch SpongeBob. Which is a weird distinction, but it surprises me how many people weren't allowed to watch SpongeBob. But I was allowed to watch SpongeBob, and we actually had cable TV. Most homeschoolers that I knew growing up did not have TV, which as someone who really enjoys their TV, I could not imagine doing that. I could not imagine living without TV. So back to the article, that's the big distinction. And I think that homeschoolers definitely are social outcasts. I mean, I think that's a fair stereotype, but there's a large number of people who are homeschooled who are not social outcasts. Me, I'm socially inept and I'm super awkward, but I feel like that has a lot more to do with other issues than being homeschooled. I think honestly, if I wasn't homeschooled, I would be way more socially incompetent than I am. Next, homeschoolers play all day. That's just true. Our school was fun. That's the big distinction between homeschooling and public schooling. Our school was fun. I enjoyed it. Might also just be because I'm a massive nerd and I like learning things. That probably has more to do with it. Only religious people homeschool. This is definitely a misconception. I know plenty of people who are homeschooled who are not very religious. I know plenty of people who did homeschool and are very religious. There's a multitude of reasons that people homeschool. A large chunk of it I do think is for religious reasons. All my friends growing up were homeschooling because of religious reasons, but that's not the only reason. There's a lot of reason that people homeschool, and religion's not the only one. So that's definitely a misconception. Parents aren't qualified to be teachers. That's not true. Granted, once you get to a certain age, like when I hit around 7th grade, there were some certain topics that my mom couldn't teach me. So I just started taking supplementary classes. Especially now that homeschool has gotten so big, there are plenty of supplementary classes you can take from certified teachers in certain areas of study. I took an AP English class in high school. I had a Spanish class that was extracurricular. I took extracurricular science, extracurricular history, extracurricular English, math. Basically, once I hit 7th grade, my mom stopped being able to teach me, so we just took supplementary thing. A lot of people will join what's called a co-op, which is just a bunch of homeschoolers getting together to do classes and kind of combine their knowledge and teach kids, and a lot of them follow a set curriculum made by people who are teaching professionals. So homeschooling is not so much where your parents are teaching you, it's more where your parents are guiding your education, if that makes sense. Most of what I learned came from textbooks, came from other teachers, came from supplementary classes, some online classes. So I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that all parents teach their kids everything, which is true when they're really young, but once they hit a certain age, most of my learning came from textbooks and stuff outside my mom. My mom was just more of the curator of what I learned and when I learned it. Only incredibly intelligent and accomplished parents can homeschool their children. My mom will be the first one to tell you that this is not true. There's a lot of stuff that my mom, bless her, does not know. So this is definitely a big misconception. I think it has more to do with the parents need to know what they don't know, and that they need to have the kind of cognitive awareness where they're like, I can't teach my kid this. We need to do something else for it. And so I think that's the most important quality for a homeschool parent, is that they know what they can't teach their children, and they don't try to teach their children stuff they don't know anything about. Next, in order to homeschool your child, you must be a stay-at-home parent. This one's tough. I think it's ideal, but I wouldn't say you have to. Homeschooling is only successful if the student is gifted or above average. Now, personally, as an intellectual, I would say this is 100% true. Only incredibly gifted children and incredibly intelligent children can be homeschooled. Obviously, that's sarcasm. You can homeschool your kid no matter what level it is. In fact, homeschooling might be better if your child isn't as smart as other people their age. There's nothing wrong with having an intelligence level below your grade. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having a learning disability too. In fact, I would say that if your child has a learning disability, I would recommend homeschooling more, because no one knows your child better than yourself. So if your child does have a learning disability, who better than to curate a curriculum that works with them through that than the parent? So I'd actually say if your child does have a learning disability, I would recommend homeschooling more. There aren't many homeschooling resources. That is completely false. That's just not true. Homeschoolers don't learn the right thing. Honestly, what constitutes a right thing? That's just dumb. I think that's such a dumb point to make. Homeschooling is restrictive. Quite the opposite. I found homeschooling to be very, very free-flowing. I was able to learn topics ahead of my grade level. I was able to learn topics a little below my grade level that I struggled with. It's a lot more free-flowing than the public school system. If there was a subject that I was interested more than another one, then I could do more with that subject. For instance, English. Since I like English and writing, I could do more things that had to do with reading and writing than, say, math or science. Unlike with public school, where I'd be forced to learn subjects that I didn't really care about or even need to learn, because I knew what I wanted to do really early on. I knew I wanted to go into film since I had to have been around 5. Like, I knew I wanted to do something in film. So me and my whole family knew that math and science wouldn't really be that important for me to learn beyond what was required by the state. Homeschooled teens miss out on the high school experience. I go back and forth on this one. There are definitely some things that I do feel like I kind of missed out on from being homeschooled. The high school experience is not High School Musical. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. There's a lot of negative things about the high school experience that I'm glad I missed out on. So I think I missed out on a lot of the bad things, but then there are some things that I do kind of feel like I missed out on, but I don't regret being homeschooled in any way. That's not what I'm saying. So I think this one is kind of true, actually. I think homeschool teens do miss out on the high school experience, but most of that experience I would say is negative. And some of the positive things, though, do include dances. If you've ever been to a homeschool dance, it's all the awkwardness of a regular high school dance times like 50. It's an interesting thing to observe. I highly recommend that if you have the chance, go to a homeschool dance. It's like going to the zoo. You see all kinds of things. You're like, I didn't even know those existed or they were allowed to be here. It's really entertaining. They should honestly make a reality show that's just about homeschool dances. I would watch the hell out of that. That would be super good. A&E, are you listening? I just gave you a golden idea. Take it. Homeschooled children don't learn as quickly or as well. That's also not true. That goes back to everything I've already been saying, so I'm just gonna move on from this one. Homeschoolers can't participate in extracurricular activities. Like I already said, I took a lot of extracurricular classes, and there are also tons of public sports leagues that your child can join. Personally, I wasn't super into sport. The only sport I really enjoyed was swimming, and I did that for almost 8 years. So this one's just completely false. It's harder for homeschoolers to get into competitive colleges. This has been disproven many times. In fact, a lot of really competitive schools actually prefer homeschool students. Homeschoolers dress head to toe in denim. As far as homeschoolers go, yeah, that's 100% true. 100% true. But as far as people who are homeschooled go, that's not true. Homeschoolers are weird. Yeah, that's not a misconception. That's a fact. I will be the first to say that is a fact. We're all weird as hell. All of us. I have never met a homeschooler who isn't weird. But that's a good thing. Celebrate your differences. Don't squander them. Celebrate it. Very few children in this country are homeschooled. Again, that's not true. Especially now that all the schools are closed and homeschooling's really the only option. No kid wants to homeschool. Their parents make them. This one just really depends on the kid. There's no blanket answer for this one. And here we go. Homeschooling isn't legal. Obviously, that's not true. There wouldn't be so many homeschoolers if it was illegal. Homeschoolers' only friends are their siblings. That's not true. I can guarantee that that's not true. I don't want to say I hated my siblings growing up, because I didn't. I loved my siblings. But that said, I really didn't get along with my siblings, especially not to the extent I do now. But I can definitely say growing up, I definitely preferred the company of my friends to the company of my siblings. Homeschooling parents are helicopter parents. There are some that are, and then there are some that aren't. That's just, it's both, either or. All homeschooling families are anti-public school. Again, that's not true. Homeschooling kids have to stick with grade level standards. That's not true. Like I said, I learned above my grade. In order to homeschool a class, a home classroom is required. It's preferable that you have one, but you don't need one. There's no difference between homeschooling and unschooling. For those of you who don't know, unschooling is the idea of letting your child learn whatever they want to and only what they want to. And it works occasionally, but that's a very case-by-case basis thing, and homeschooling is not at all the same thing as unschooling. Yeah, and that's the end of this list. I would agree with most of those. So now we're gonna move to the fun part, which is BuzzFeed. Round of applause for BuzzFeed. The first thing we're gonna do is a quiz. Everyone loves BuzzFeed quizzes. I've always wanted to know what type of trash I am. Apparently I'm an empty pizza box, by the way. I signal the disappointment at the end of a party, which, that's pretty fair. All right, this checklist will reveal if you were homeschooled or not. Let's see how accurate this list is. Check off everything you've done. Gone to the grocery store, gas station, or some other boring place just to get out. That's true. Stayed in your PJs all day on a weekday. I still do that in college, so yeah. Wondered why people hate Monday so much. Never did that. I knew very well why people hated Monday, and I hated Monday. Of course, we didn't have school on the weekends, so Monday meant that I would have to actually do things. I don't like doing things. That's why it takes me like a month to put out a new video, because I don't like doing things. Ask yourself, what day of the week is it? Like 10 times a day. I had a calendar. Never had to ask that question. Been surprised to find out it was Saturday. Never done that. Dreaded spring break. Actually, no, I didn't, because spring break meant that all my friends who were public school could actually play outside with me. So I loved spring break. Same with fall break. Same with summer break. And Christmas, because you got bored. No, never hated Christmas. What? No, who dreads Christmas? Like, what child who isn't Jewish isn't excited for Christmas? Come on, that's so dumb. That's dumb. That's dumb. Avoided going out on weekends because of all the people. Nope. Rolled your eyes at the mean teacher joke. No. Rolled your eyes when asked if you had any friends. Yes, I hated that question. Hated that question. I'm like, of course I have friends. It's insulting. It's an insulting question. Like, I know I don't have like the easiest personality because, I mean, look at all the anime crap behind me. Obviously, I'm not the most unannoying person to talk to, that's for sure, but I definitely hated this question. Rolled your eyes at how unrealistic homeschoolers like you are portrayed in the media. No, I never cared, to be honest. Been told how mature you were for your age. Yep. Been told how well you speak to adults. Yep. Been told how well you speak to others in general. Yep. Had a really awesome relationship with your siblings. As I already said, no, that's, at least growing up, that wasn't true. Now, yes, growing up, we butted heads a lot. I have a very conflicting personality compared to that of my two siblings, for sure. We're fine now. Had a really awesome relationship with your parents. I would say that's true. Actually read books for fun. Hells yeah. Percy Jackson is my lifestyle. Are fluent in multiple languages. Personally, the only language I can confidently say I'm fluent in is English, obviously. But I feel comfortable saying I'm at least conversational in Spanish. Like, I can carry on a conversation in Spanish, and if I had to go live in a Spanish-speaking country, I'd feel totally fine. I'm also slowly getting to the point where I feel comfortable saying that I'm conversational in Japanese. When I went to Japan, I was able to get around with the Japanese that I did know. And then I also know a few insults in Dutch. Je bent een stomme ik ga je een stomme gezicht sluiten. Please don't look up what that set meant. Please, if there's any Dutch speakers out there, I'm sorry, first of all, for butchering your language, and I'm also sorry for what I said. Don't look it up, please. Fluent in at least one dead language. I did speak Latin for a spell. Played multiple musical instruments before age 13. I mean, I kind of played piano, like, a little bit, and I knew how to play triangle. Does that count? I don't think that counts. I'm not gonna be able to say that. Been able to correctly label every single country on a map before age 13. Yes, and I pride myself on that fact. That's the reason I haven't done one of those geography quizzes on my channel, because I know I aced them. I loved geography. My geography teacher in 7th grade was freaking amazing. I absolutely loved her. Her name was Mrs. Clark. If you're watching this, Mrs. Clark, your geography class, it's the only thing I remember, actually, from 7th grade. I don't remember anything else except your geography class. And I still can name a majority of the countries on the map, I would say, pretty confidently. Been admitted to college for age 17? Nope. Actually gone to college? Nope. And lastly, actually enjoyed and valued learning overall. I would say that's true. All right, BuzzFeed. See, I feel like this answer sums up most BuzzFeed quizzes. Definitely not homeschooled. Nope, you went to public school. Please remember that we homeschoolers are people too, just like a Billie Eilish. I feel at the same time a little insulted because of all the stereotypes being perpetuated in this quiz, but also a little flattered that I'm not considered a homeschooler. See, I told you guys, there was a difference. All right, with that quiz out of the way, 18 things everyone who is homeschooled knows to be true. You basically went on field trips every dang day, no matter if it was the park, the grocery store, or the public library. That's decently true. Let's put up a truth counter right here in the corner. We'll count how many things in this article are actually true. If you had a bad day at school, venting to your parents about your teachers was hardly an option. That one I'm actually gonna put on the untrue counter, which I guess I just added. Thank you, Jonah, for making more work for me, your editor. That one's not true. I never had a bad day at school. When push came to shove, your siblings were definitely your best friends, except when they were your worst enemies. That's not true. We've been over this. Another in the truth counter. Not looking good, BuzzFeed. Not looking good. You're basically always in your pajamas. Learning happened best when you're comfy AF. That's the truth. All right, we're 2 and 2. If you were religious, there's a 100% chance your church youth group contained 98% of your squad. Growing up, we actually went to a church that was pretty far away. It was about 45 minutes from our house. So this one, for me specifically, I would say isn't true. Most of my friends I've actually met through homeschooling, through homeschool game nights, which were a thing and were always a delight to witness. That's for sure. Me and my friends were, we were definitely the troublemakers. If anyone watching this hosted one of those homeschool game nights, I sincerely apologize for being the difficult child. And I think the main reason was I was so sick of being like lumped in with homeschoolers that I kind of overcompensated to separate myself from that group of people as much as I could, that I ended up just being an a-hole growing up. So I'm sorry about that. Probably met your first crush at a church or community lock-in. Yeah, that's true. I won't say who it is because I'm pretty sure they watch my YouTube channel. Another in the truth counter. I don't know how many we're at. Picking a college class either made you feel like an idiot or a genius, and sometimes both. I always felt like a genius. I definitely ran around telling all my public school friends, like, I'm taking a college level class. Are you taking a college class? No, I don't think so. Your ability to sense if someone else was also homeschooled is one of your greatest superpowers. Obviously, I can spot a homeschooler from a mile away, but a lot harder to tell which people were homeschooled than you think. The group of people who were homeschooled is a very diverse group, and it's a lot harder to tell than people think it is. So that's another one in the untrue. Not being around a bunch of people allow you to grow as an individual, so your sense of self is basically off the damn chain. No, it's not true. At least for me. You set your own schedule, which allowed you to choose what you actually wanted to learn. That's true. As I said earlier, that is definitely true. And some of that time was definitely spent looking in the back of the book for the answers. I still do this in college, let's be real. We've all cheated. Well, maybe not outright cheated, but we all definitely bent the rules a bit when it came to quizzes and homework and stuff like that. I know for a fact a majority of college students have definitely taken an open book test as an excuse to have Google open in another tab, or had an ebook and Control F their way through the entire quiz. If you're saying you've never done that and you're a college student, you're lying. We all know it's not true. Homeschool prom was simultaneously the most lit and wholesome event of the year. No, homeschool prom was... See, homeschoolers don't like saying no to people, so at our prom, someone thought it would be a great idea to have 6th graders at the same dance as 12th graders. Now, as most of you have guessed, that's not a good idea. That's a really bad idea. Most of my friends, we didn't go to prom specifically for that reason. Like, nobody over the age of 15 wants to be anywhere near more than one 6th grader at any given moment, ever. So that is, no. Like I said, homeschool dances are one of the weirdest things in the world. If you had a yearbook at all, it was probably scrapbooked and includes pics of your dog. That's actually true. That's actually true. I was blessed to have a yearbook through most of my middle school and high school years. Wait, I think I still have them somewhere. I should totally react to them on camera. Oh my gosh, that's an award-winning idea right there, especially now that the year's ending. If you guys want to see me react to my homeschool yearbooks, let me know, and I'll probably do it whether you guys want it or not. That's a freaking great idea. I can't believe I've never thought of that before. Your high school reunion was a party of one, unless you went to a co-op, in which case it was like 10 people. I haven't even graduated college yet, so I've not been alive long enough to have a homeschool reunion. You 100% knew all about sex education. Just kidding. You nodded and Googled everything later. I'm gonna move on from that. Nothing felt as good as finding other homeschooled kids like yourself. Especially since I was allowed to play video games and watch movies. It was incredibly hard for me to find other homeschool kids who had the same interests as me. So when I did, I clung to them. And finally, people don't always understand your way of life, but you wouldn't have it any other way. I go back and forth on that, but as of right now, and for the most part, yeah, I'd say that one's true. So, here's the final results. I don't know what they are. I wasn't keeping track when I went through this. But I think I'm gonna go ahead and end this video there. I've already been recording this way longer than I ever needed to. So, there you have it. A little peek into the wondrous world that is homeschooling. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you let me know by hitting that like button. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit that big red subscribe button right below this video and hit that little notification bell. That way you're notified every time I upload a new video. If any of you watching were homeschooled and you had a different experience from me or disagreed with some of the things that I said, make sure you let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you weren't homeschooled, I would also love to hear your perspective on the whole homeschooling phenomenon and what you guys think of some of the things that were discussed in these articles. Honestly, my videos don't get a ton of comments, and I would really honestly love to hear from some of you guys. And with all that, this is your pal Jonah signing off and saying see you next time on Jonah Entertainment. Bye everybody!
I wish I found some better sounds no one's ever heard. I wish I had a